Hi guys, we'll start in a minute. I can see people joining. I'll just give everyone else a minute or so. Haven't done this in a while. Feels a little bit new. Give it 10 more seconds. I can still see the numbers just going up. Right, I think that's enough time. So hello and welcome to our 7th AST virtual event. We obviously had 6 fairly sort of quickly once lockdown started, and then when the football resumed, we thought we'll kind of leave you alone and let you enjoy the football. Enjoy is maybe a strong word at times, but there've obviously been a few good moments, and one of the moments we're certainly going to discuss in detail later, and that is of course the FA Cup semi-final and the forthcoming final. So just a few kind of rules kind of. So you can feel free to tweet out. We don't mind that at all. If you're watching live, you can use the hashtag AST event. So it just helps us kind of monitor. We've got 2 ways you can get involved this evening. You can ask a question on the chat or on the Q&A rather, and we will answer that, and we'll get Tim and Adrian depending on what section it is. But better off if you put your hand up, I'll bring you in again and you can kind of ask your question sort of live. So that's always kind of nice. A big welcome to any new members. We have had quite a few members join us in the last month or so. Many of you have joined from overseas as well, which is really, really good to see. So yeah, thank you for joining, and we hope you enjoy this event and hopefully all the other events we've got planned as well. So I'm now gonna stop sharing my screen, and I'm gonna bring in Nigel, our financial expert. And it's kind of strange actually, because we had Nigel planned for the first one or the second one, but then he just keeps coming back because loads of people keep asking you questions. So I'm going to play the little bit of a host rather than just sort of let Nigel talk. But so Nigel, I guess the first question, and we've had it in, and I know you kind of replied to the gentleman because he can't make it, but what is the FA Cup worth to football clubs financially? How much do you get from being in it? How much do you get from winning it? How much do you get from all the rounds from the 3rd round to now?
Well, this was the question in from Jeremy Cunnington, who will be watching at some stage. So thank you, Jeremy. The FA Cup has a prize pool, which every participating club, all 800 clubs, will receive something, whether they're a loser in the extra preliminary round or the winner on Saturday. The winner on Saturday is going to get £3.6 million, and the runner-up will get £1.8 million. So £3.6 million on its own is just about one regular home game for Arsenal in terms of gross revenues. So I think it's fair to say the FA Cup for a club like Arsenal was more about the glory of winning something as opposed to the financial benefits it brings. So, for Arsenal, it would be the 14th FA Cup win. It will be their 31st major trophy if it comes off. So I think you've got to put it in perspective for the fact that it's a trophy rather than the prize money. But what it will bring, and I'm sure everyone's very focused on this, is qualification to the Europa League. And for Arsenal, sorry, Echo.
No, I was going to say that's going to be my sort of follow-up question. So I mean, there's the glory aspect, and we all want to win. We all want trophies. That's why we're in the game. But obviously, we are at a time where financially, clubs have been hit hard by COVID-19, and obviously clubs are still recovering. So financially, what is the Europa League worth? And obviously, that's our, the league's done now. So this is our kind of, it's win or bust, really.
Well, this if we were to participate next season, it will be the fourth year on the trot in the Europa League. For the 18-19 Europa League season, the final in Baku, that generated for Arsenal in European broadcast revenues £37 million. £37 million. So Tottenham, for getting to the Champions League final, got over 100. So you can see the big difference. This season, or season just ending, we went out at round of 32 to Olympiacos. We're also sharing the pool with Wolves and Man United. So our take on it this season will be significantly less. But if we were successful, got through to, dare I say, the quarter-final, semi-final in 2021, as a minimum, we would have thought probably somewhere between 30 and 35 million pounds, which when you look at the total wage bill that Arsenal have, which for 18-19 season was 230 million pounds, if you've got an extra 30 coming in with almost no costs associated with it, it's a significant portion of that spend. The other thing that we haven't mentioned, that the win against Watford on Sunday was worth to Arsenal £6.4 million. So for every position in the league table, it's £3.2 million. So that's 6.4 from going from 10th place to 8th place is enough to pay one season of Salibos's loan fee and wages. So I'm not saying that the win on Sunday is more important than what's coming on Saturday, but people shouldn't lose sight of the fact that Premier League positions are super important for money and qualification.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Nigel. I think that was helpful. If there are any questions, Nigel is going to be kind of backstage, as I say, so he'll be able to kind of answer any. So if you pop him into the Q&A, I'm sure Nigel is happy to answer them. And I know a few people have just joined in the last few minutes as well. So if you missed any of that, or you do have any kind of questions, then obviously just pop them in the Q&A, and I'm sure Nigel will kindly answer them. Thanks, Nigel. So I'm going to bring in Tim, and part one of this is going to be about the kind of return to stadiums for fans and kind of what we know. Then obviously part two, we'll bring in Adrian Clarke to talk more about the actual football stuff. So Tim, I guess, welcome. Obviously it's been a long few months and there's been lots going on, and we, the AST, we've had some good engagement with Arsenal, but just kind of generally for people that don't know, what's the plan with starting the season? I know the date's now in the public domain, but what's the plan for starting the season? When do you think fans will be allowed, and at what sort of capacity have we heard?
Well, the plan at the moment, and of course I should stress that everything can change. People who had a holiday booked in Spain can tell you that. Think that it is a flexible policy area, but the plan at the moment is for fans to return from the 1st of October. I think it's unlikely that would be brought forward, because what they want to get everyone back to the schools, every child back to school at the beginning of September, and have 2 or 3 weeks of seeing how that settles down and the impact that might have on transmission and cases. So what's going on at the moment is some pilot projects to look at the return of fans, and people might have seen that that's begun with 1 or 2 very small attendances at cricket matches. The biggest test comes this weekend at glorious Goodwood at the horse racing, where they plan to have 5,000 fans in. And then I think they'll probably look to start doing some testing in football in late August, early September, perhaps using women's games first, maybe the Community Shield I've heard mentioned. There are some particular characteristics around football, larger crowds, but also more boisterous crowds with, shouting and singing, sometimes booing even, would you believe, happens at stadia. And never heard that, Arsenal. And then, lots and lots of work to do, but possibly for the 1st of October, anyone who is interested in this can go and look at a detailed document now published in draft on the website of the Sports Ground Safety Authority. You'll find that a quick search on Google, and it sets out all the parameters for how you bring back crowds under social distancing. It will depend to a certain extent on your entry arrangements, the size of the concourses, the distance between seats. Arsenal have quite big seats, as we all know. That might actually help. But the feeling is that most grounds will get around about 25% in, maybe a bit more. I would expect, if it does go ahead, looking at about 15,000 in Arsenal, perhaps getting a little bit higher than that, but certainly not more than 20,000 at the earlier games. And it will not be football as we know it, Akil. It will be very different from the experience we're used to.
Just before we go into the experience stuff, and I know we've obviously had a few chats about this, but we had a question from Larry, who's obviously, you know, has seen that it's the FA Cup final this Saturday. There's Arsenal and Chelsea. He asks, was there any ever consideration made to make that a test event or a trial, or was it just never in the plans?
No, certainly it's been raised. I mean, people at the FA would have liked that, but I think that it's too high a profile a match, and also it might not be the best stadium to use, given that it doesn't, you know, there's no football stadium like it in terms of size. No. So I don't think that was ever looked at in any detail. Also, imagine the kerfuffle if some fans got in and trying to police outside and so on. But I have heard talk that perhaps the Community Shield might be used for some kind of test.
And the date was announced for that, wasn't it, today?
End of August.
August, yeah. It's not long, is it? Cool, okay. So talking about kind of the experience, and if anyone has any questions specifically, do feel free to put them in the Q&A. Thinking about the experience, I mean, you know, at the moment it's mandatory to have masks on in sort of supermarkets and all that kind of stuff. What do you know? Do you think masks will be mandatory? And I know you've talked to me about kind of the singing and the droplets and all that, but just give me a bit of a.
Well, I don't, on masks, who knows, because the policy is changing. I expect that you probably would be asked to wear a mask on entry and accessing your seat, but then when you're actually in your position, that you could take your mask off. That's certainly how the trials at cricket have run. But this is one of the most contentious and difficult to get right policy areas, and who knows what they'll be saying by then. Let's just think about the experience. Yeah. Almost the biggest problem is entry, because you've got, you know, normally it's quite a crush, or not a crush, but you know what I mean, you're all crowded in together to get through the turnstile, which you touch, and you get patted down by a security person. It's thought very likely that there will be staggered arrival times. Now, it's not much fun if your ticket says on it, arrive at 2 o'clock, you must be in turnstile by 2 o'clock for a 3 o'clock kickoff. Or do they bring the crowds right down so it's not that bad? But it may well be that you have to arrive at a certain time or you don't get in. Then when you get in, they have to think about concourse arrangements and getting you to your seat in a way where you don't interact with others. Tickets will be able to be sold to people who come together in the bubbles that we're aware of, but in a bubble that they're already a part of, and they'll have to try and work that out. But they will be able to have 2 or 3 seats together if it is a household. But in most occasions, it will be people coming on their own and not sitting with anybody else. There will be a gap, you know, all around them. They're looking at having either 1 metre or 1.6 metre as the ideal circumference around you. You can see how complicated this is when you look at the guidance, and it talks about how if you're in a row and you want to leave your row, perhaps to go to the toilet, that, you know,
is my favourite point.
Is everybody else in the row? How are they going to manage that? Is it, you know, a no touching process? Does everyone in the row have to leave first?
Well, that's interesting. So what it says in the guidance is everyone has to turn around and their back faces the pitch, and that person gets out. So there's no face-to-face contact. I mean, that will be. I don't know who's going to police that, but I feel sorry for them.
And then policing leaving. I mean, imagine, like, you know, losing 3-0 and it's cold and rainy and being told they want you to stay another 40 minutes while they do a staggered leaving. And then, yes, they've got to think about chanting and singing because of the aerosol spraying. Will there be any food and drink on sale? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm absolutely like clamouring to get back because I think I want to get back, but it's not getting back to what we knew. And when you think of what the experience will be like, I'm not sure it will be that much, that fun or that exciting or that worthwhile going to. But no doubt some people won't want to go at all. Others will go and experience and wonder whether they want to go back again while it's under that kind of restriction. We'll have to start and see how it settles down.
And even with transport, I know again we've mentioned this, but transport's obviously an issue as well. And I know you've got views about being the Piccadilly line being actually potentially...
The biggest bit of risk going to an Arsenal game will be the Piccadilly line, and Arsenal really suffer in this regard in that they are a public transport stadium. The vast majority of people who go to the Emirates arrive on public transport, and there will be localised powers with Islington Council and TfL who might be able to stop the games going ahead or put restrictions on transport, because they obviously have to think about the impact there will be on the local community and on the transport. So I don't think you can say for certain that games will come back on 1st of October. It might be, for instance, that they're happy with games at the weekend, but not in the evenings if it's going to overlap with a rush hour that's getting busier. There is really no rush hour on the Piccadilly line at the moment, but that will start to come back. There are many, many factors, and I don't think we can know for sure that how many of us and which games will be back in the Emirates this season.
Yeah, and obviously track and trace has been something that's been talked about. I mean, there's many pub owners out there who didn't open because they just didn't feel comfortable with the track and trace, because they just felt the responsibility and it was too much. I mean, do you think something like that in football? Because obviously, we're a closed group of 100 people here. Let's be honest, people sometimes do rent or share season tickets. They might not be on their name, and we have had a few questions from people about that. Will the track and trace potentially be there? And then does that make it hard? Does your ticket have to match the person going in? What are your sort of views and what have you heard?
Well, in theory, the track and trace is easy because you will know who's been sitting near you because of the ticketing system. Of course, what the ticketing system might not show you is who actually used that ticket. Something they've done already at Spurs is they've introduced an amnesty for everybody to record the correct name of who is actually holding a season ticket. I think we all know many, many season tickets Arsenal over the years have moved between people within families and friends. And it might be a good idea for Arsenal to introduce something like that and then have quite strict checking on entry that the actual person entering is the person whose name was on the ticket. So they have got that health and safety backup that if somebody does, test positive for the coronavirus who was in block 92, they'll be able to tell everybody else who was in block 92 and take the appropriate testing and quarantining arrangements.
Yeah. A few questions in. There is one from Richard and from Alexander about kind of allocation of tickets. I know, we've had conversations with Arsenal, and that's certainly something that hasn't been decided, and it's something that the club have kind of said it's not definite, and they'll hopefully talk to us about in the coming days and weeks. But generally, I know the AST, well, we've got a few points that we want to take to the club, and we've got something arranged. Just want to kind of expand on that a little bit and include the ticketing stuff in there.
Yes, it's going to be really, really difficult, for the club, because they don't know how many people are going to want to go, and then trying to arrange ticketing is going to be a real big challenge for them. These are some of the things that we have said to the club so far, and please put in the comments here or email into us afterwards anything else you want to say. The first thing is we're going to say to the club, it's really important that anyone who wants to opt out for the season, who is a season ticket holder or a membership holder, or choose what games they want to go to, they might be shielding or unsure, should have the right to opt out without losing any of the privileges, i.e. put your season ticket on hold for a year. Or if the club do it whereby it's a ballot or opt in to buy tickets, that if you don't opt in or don't enter the ballot, you don't face any penalty. I think that's really important when there'll be people who'll be nervous about going, or not, or quite frankly think that the experience isn't fun enough to go towards. So that's the first one. The second one we're going to say is tickets are going to be scarce. There needs to be a really good ticket exchange. It needs to work really well, and it needs to work right up to kick-off, including the fact that you don't want people attending if they're not well or they think they might have coronavirus. So you do want an option to pass your ticket on through the exchange. But equally, I think it would be, we do know there are a lot of empty seats, and I think taking a ticket and not using it when there's such a pressure on ticket capacity would be a really terrible thing as well. And there probably needs to be a kind of one strike, two strike and you're out for people like that. So They need to work on the ticket exchange and getting people in. We talked about names on tickets so that track and trace and the anti-touting measures can work. We do think it's important that there is an allocation of tickets made available for silver and red members. You've got to try and look after everybody, but certainly over the season, they must try and prioritise some of those memberships to get in. And finally, asking them to look at how they can make the broadcast package available. Will people be able to buy the particular game that they're not able to go to, or will there be a voucher for it? Because clearly there will be 45,000 people who would normally go to the home game who won't be able to go. We know that they're going back to the standard broadcast contracts next season, which is only about half the games being played live on television. They should look into having some kind of arrangement where people who can't go can watch live. I can see the questions coming in about how they'll allocate particularly. I think they're still looking at whether it's an opt-in or opt-out type of system, but Arsenal have promised further dialogue with us on that and to pass on to you our membership's views and perhaps have some further consultation, and we'll get back to you when we can. I certainly think so far, if you look at their refund arrangement and other things that they've done, they've been very, very fair and open about the ticketing, and we hope that will carry on.
Yeah, as you say, we've had a few questions that I think we've kind of covered. So the silver and reds have obviously paid. What about golds? I think, as Tim says, I think once now the cup final's out of the way, I think the focus will really be on next season. So that will obviously, we'll be looking into that.
I can see one or two other questions.
Away fans?
Field, but
away fans?
Yeah, I think initially away fans, unlikely to be any away fans, or if there are a very small allocation, you'd be looking at under 1,000. It's generally seen that away fans are slightly harder to steward, and of course you've still got to have the social distancing arrangements. So no away fans or a very small allocation, I believe. Another question about what's the plan to ramp up to full stadia. Well, I don't think you'll see full stadia until you see social distancing totally removed. I would be doubtful from what I've seen. I do work on this during the day in my day job. I would think it be very optimistic to think that you'll be back to normal before we're through the winter. So before March, April at the earliest. And probably I'd be of the view it's very unlikely we'll see the Emirates full next season, sadly.
Yeah, cool. I think we've answered most of them. If anyone wants to raise their hand, we've got 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we're going to move on to Adrian.
I can see one here asking about why red and silver members have paid full price. The club have said that the membership is open, i.e. it will run for a season from whenever the season is played, and also that people have the choice of whether or not they renew at the moment, and they are trying to bring in more value to the membership. But clearly the most important thing, if you've got a red or silver membership, is that we'll give you some access to some tickets at some point next season. And the AST plan to reiterate that to Arsenal.
There were also silver members who had bought tickets to the Watford or the Leicester game, were given a Now TV pass just a few weeks ago. So there's hopefully some negotiations there to do. So I think it's such a changing world, isn't it, that we just don't know what it's going to sort of look like. And I know there were a few comments when people registered about kind of opting out. I know you mentioned it briefly, but I think there are a lot of fans there that potentially won't feel comfortable. There was one chap who's a member, I think he's here, I think he's watching, on Twitter, talking about how he's kind of not comfortable going back to football. So I think there will be, that's certainly something we'll be pushing for, that, those who don't feel comfortable or are shielding potentially still, to make sure they're looked after.
The other thing, I can see someone asking about digital health passports and things like that. I don't think we'll see anything like that. You may well see, I don't know, I actually went overseas on a short holiday last week and experienced for the first time the little thermometer check that's pointed at your forehead. You may see things like that. And one of the things I should have covered before is that when you take a ticket, you'll be expected to tick not only like terms and conditions, but that you're following a kind of code of conduct. And the code of conduct will be about how you behave that you won't go at the last minute if you feel ill or have any of the symptoms. It will no doubt cover the latest on the masks, that you'll follow the one-way systems. There will be a kind of code and an expected standard of behaviour. What I don't know is whether if you were to breach that code, does that mean loss of ticket or loss of membership rights? I don't know. I think that's something that will have to be thought about by the club and come back to.
Who would want to be a steward? Hey, I'm going to quickly bring in Fergus, and then we will move on to Adrian. So, Fergus, welcome. Unmute your microphone and ask a question.
Hey, Akhil, good to speak to you. Tim, nice to speak to you. It's probably gone over a lot of the stuff you're talking about, but they're talking about red and silver members. I've got some red memberships and junior gunner memberships for my family and grandkids. I've paid for them for the next season. Yet again, I haven't renewed my season ticket. I understand that my season ticket price can't be determined because we don't know where we're going to end up, whether we got European football, etc. But surely, wouldn't a good gesture from the club would have been to give a gratis year to people who've had 2 or 3 years, or 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the term is, to red and silver members, and then because they're not going to be able, if there is restricted access to the club, and you've got, I think you noted down something like 25%. Did you say 25, Tim? 25%?
About 25%, yeah.
Yeah. So if there's 25% access, you got a stadium that's got 60,000 in there. We've got 40,000 season ticket holders. As Akhil rightly said, there's many people who, for personal or health reasons, will not want to attend the stadium, and maybe just because it's a pain in the ass, will not want to attend the stadium. So you're going to have at least 20,000 that may want to. So no red or silver members will have an opportunity to do that. Track, trace, everything you've said. I've made loads of notes for some stuff I talk about. It just
move you on first, just because we've got.
Yeah. Sorry. It shouldn't have waived the red and silver memberships for the season. Also, the very final question as well, that people are talking in the chat about toilets. If the toilets are closed, people are only going to pee somewhere else. So they need to leave that open, and it's a health hazard.
Well, that's true. I think if you did that, it'd be, that would be removal of your membership. On your main point, I see what you're saying. I think it would be better to, first of all, focus on saying it's really important that there are tickets that the red and silver members can access. If it transpires over the season that there aren't, or we get more of a lockdown, or we're largely behind closed doors, I think there would be a very strong point then for saying that the membership should roll over into the next season. But I think that at the moment, the club are hoping that it will deliver benefits to people, that they can use their membership to get some tickets, and therefore it will be worthwhile to join. But I note your point and think we should have an ongoing dialogue with Arsenal. If you take out a red membership and you genuinely have no access to tickets over the season, you should be refunded that cost or given gratis into the next season. I think most people would think was a fair approach.
Yeah, cool. And sort of final two that I don't think we can answer, but Paul, we will certainly raise the stuff about children and obviously junior gunners enclosures, because obviously they can't essentially go on their own.
But you would be able to buy tickets inside your family bubble. So junior gunners would go with the adult, because that would be the bubble. And that, of course, is one of the reasons why it's difficult to say what capacity would be, because quite a lot of people do go in the family group. Then you can actually have more people in, because you can have 2, 3, even 4 people sitting next to each other, because they're not social distancing. Think of it as very similar to anything else you do in life at the moment. You'll be in those small groups and socially distancing. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think we will move on now. So thank you, Tim, and may bring you back later. We'll see how it goes. So I want to welcome Adrian Clarke, and this is kind of the main bit of the evening. Adrian, how are you?
Good evening, Akhil. Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to answering any questions you've got. Yeah, really appreciate it.
And this is quite different for us, because obviously the AST are all about off the field matters. We very rarely get involved in on the field, because that's just not our remit. So this is a little bit unusual for us. But I mean, we are in a cup final. I think we do have to get excited. I always kind of get excited about cup finals, and I am like a bit of a kid. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to this next half an hour. And as I said, it's very different. So we want people to ask their questions. Do raise your hand. It's a little bit easier. I'll be probably not taking a look at the Q&A as much now, but we will come to them in a little while. But please do raise your hands. But Adrian, how's kind of lockdown been for you? Obviously, I remember seeing you very briefly after the West Ham game, which was obviously the last game where fans were. So how's it been for you since? And obviously your role, you have been involved.
Yeah, well, I miss football terribly. That is for sure, Akil. I mean, it was awful for a while, wasn't it? And but yeah, no, I think it was good that the club allowed me to continue with the breakdown. It was nice actually to look at some of the classic matches back again and to analyse those in sort of forensic detail, and the pattern that I spotted along the way, and all of those great wins was such strength of character. Really, central midfield. We dominated. We were absolutely monstrous. Various eras through those cup wins or those great Wenger teams, we were terrific in that department. And that, I think, has been one area that we've certainly not been so strong on throughout the course of this campaign and probably the last couple of seasons. So that was nice. And now that we're back into the season, or we were back into the season, it's been pretty relentless, I've got to say. But delighted that the match day show turned into the breakdown live. So it was good to have some, the chance to analyse on the hoof, shall we say, and it was really good fun most of the time. Some of the games not so good to analyse, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, it's obviously a big difference from going to the stadium and stuff like that. I mean, how was the first couple of games reliant on technology, doing things a little bit differently? I mean, how did that all go? And what does your match day look like now?
Well, it's very different, yeah, of course. Yeah, I live up in Leicestershire, so I don't have that commute, so that's a bit of a bonus. But desperately miss the Emirates, of course, the atmosphere. I think like all people that love the game, you need supporters inside the stadium, and I do feel that one lesson that we'll all learn, and hopefully that you guys, the supporters, will be appreciated that little bit more once we do go back to normal, because it isn't the same with empty grounds. But in terms of the my match day, it's just it's online. It's having a couple of screens in my office and relying on the internet not to break down. But I have to say, it's held up very nicely. I've been co-commentating. I've been doing the pre-match show with Nick Bright, then co-commentating with Dan Roebuck. We're obviously in different locations, but it's all worked out pretty well. So yeah, so far so good. But yeah, it's just a shame we're not at the grounds.
What's kind of the differences been like for you, obviously, because when you're, it's just like fans, I guess, when you're at a ground, what you're seeing is the whole picture. On a screen TV, you're just seeing whatever the broadcasters want you to see. How has that been for you, and does that impact your commentary, or you haven't really noticed?
Well, yeah, it's difficult to commentate in silence for a start, because it's so much less fun. And it's weird. It's weird for everybody, I think, watching football at the moment. But when I do cover the breakdown and when I analyse the games, I always watch them in silence anyway. I turn off the commentary, whether it's my own or whether it's the TV commentary. I just sort of just get in the zone. So that's what I'm doing with this. So it's not too bad, but yeah, it's the whole experience is just not as enjoyable.
And just lastly on that, I mean, the whole commentary thing, as you said, you're in, at the Emirates, you're in the press box above me, and you're kind of next to each other, and you can kind of, use each other. But has there been times where commentary's been difficult, if someone's been slightly ahead, or all that kind of stuff?
No, there has, Dan's been ahead of me, or I can tell that his screen is frozen, and I've had to sort of carry the can for a little bit. But the commentary that we do on the breakdown live is radio commentary, so it's not quite as important. But hopefully, and I would advise anyone out there that's watching the games on TV next season and they're not enjoying the commentary that you're getting on TV, you can probably sync up fairly easily with us. And and hopefully, I mean, we're not biased. It's obviously got an Arsenal slant, but hopefully it'll be more enjoyable. And certainly there's no anti-Arsenal, which I know that many commentators have been accused of on the TV.
Yeah. And that whole kind of, analysis piece and stuff like that, kind of before and after, do you feel actually this format is giving you more of a chance to do all that? Because you clearly enjoy it. You clearly enjoy talking tactics, and the breakdown shows that. Is this giving more of an opportunity?
Well, I guess so. Yeah, I love doing it. I'm just really, really grateful to the club for giving me the opportunity quite a few years ago now. I think I've been doing it since I can't remember when it was, 2013, something like that, 14. So it's been going a while, and they don't interfere, and that's what I love about it. They give me the free rein. They trust me to analyse the games fairly, and it's very, very rare that they will sort of look at my script and say, hang on, could we just change this little bit or that little bit? It happens occasionally, but it's only ever a word or two. It's not, you can't say that. So I'm really grateful to them for giving me the opportunity. And yeah, it's just nice to have people have such good feedback online. We all know what social media is like. It can be quite vicious. But in regards to the breakdown, it's been overwhelmingly nice stuff that people have been chatting to me about, which is, pretty cool.
And so obviously we resumed football mid-March, and we had 10 league games, plus we've had sort of 2 cup games. How would you sort of, analyse, how would you rate kind of how Arsenal have done through lockdown, but after lockdown?
Mixed bag, yeah, very much a mixed bag. Disappointing season overall, obviously. Didn't score anywhere near enough goals. And defensively, we were too leaky, weren't we? I mean, only 4 clubs in the division faced more shots than Arsenal this season, which I find quite a distressing stat, really. Our goalkeepers have been far too busy, and that kind of has continued since lockdown. Ups and downs. What I enjoyed was the change of system. I think that I had felt that Mikel was a little bit married to 4-2-3-1, and even though there were little tweaks and nuances about it, which I really liked, I thought it was good to have a plan B, and it was the right call, because I think we all agree that in a back 4, our central defenders, particularly David Luiz, are a little bit exposed, and it's a needs must situation, and for that reason he's gone there, and I do think that we've been slightly better with a back 3 than a back 4, so that's been a plus. The City game was magnificent. The other games, I think, have been up and down, of course.
Let's talk about that City game a little bit. And I presume you're talking about the second one, not the first. But I mean, it was. I think most fans were quite. It was unexpected. Let's just say that. I think most were just looking to watch the semi-final, no real expectations. But I mean, Arsenal turned up. They had a plan. They had a proper game plan, and they executed it. I mean, why do you think that game went so well?
Concentration, simple as that. The discipline was outstanding, and let's be frank here. I don't think discipline and concentration have been two strong areas for this team for a long while in terms of their off the ball work. But what they did on the big stage was listen to the coach and carry out his instructions to the letter, and no one made a mistake. I mean, there were mistakes, small ones, but no one made a costly mistake. It was a real team effort, and I do think that Mikel Arteta absolutely comes out of that with huge credit. He didn't school Pep Guardiola because it was still a tough game, and they had a lot of chances. We had a bit of good fortune, I guess, but overall, I think he nailed it in terms of the tactics, preying on City's weaknesses magnificently. So yeah, it was perfect, and I think we're going to need something similar on Saturday to beat Chelsea, but I don't think Chelsea are as strong as Manchester City. So I'm slightly more confident ahead of this game than I was ahead of the semi-final.
But we've had a few questions. We had one from Vinny in advance. I mean, you've kind of talked about it, back 3 or back 4. I think it will be a back 3. But I mean, what do you? Who do you think will play across it? Obviously, Mustafi's out, so would you expect Holding? And then there's a real decision to be made on left fullback, isn't there? Because Saka has obviously played well there, but Ainsley Maitland-Niles started the semi-final, and he came on against Wolves to stop Traore. So he's obviously, Mikel has a plan for him.
Yeah, the back five, because I think it will turn into a back five because Chelsea have so much possession. There's some difficult decisions there because clearly Maitland-Niles in that semi-final did a really solid job. But there's a lack of balance there when we do come forward. The final ball from Maitland-Niles, because he's not on his more comfortable side on the left, was nowhere near as good or consistent as it would have been for Bukayo Saka. Personally, I would go with a back three of Holding to the right of David Luiz, and I would again have Tierney to his left. I love the way Tierney stayed so close to David Luiz because he's a left back that likes to fly up the pitch. It was quite alien to him to do that, but the team needed it. And they needed to close those gaps. So I would stay with the same back three. At right back, I would go back to Hector. I think that he's just about the best of the bunch in that position. I think it's a position we could maybe look to strengthen moving forwards.
And he's fit now as well.
And on the left, it's a close call. Obviously, you've got Kolasinac, you've got Saka, or you've got Maitland-Niles. For me, I would choose Bukayo Saka because I think he proved that he's he can defend during that period at left back. And when he does get into the final third, there is nobody better really in the squad at producing that cross, that final ball that we need. It doesn't mean to think that I think Mikel Arteta will pick Saka. I think he's up against it actually because he hasn't played him at left wing back in the run up to the final. So I worry that Saka might miss out, but he would be my pick.
Okay. Neil's got his hand up and I will bring him in. I'm going to bring Chloe in just to summarise a few of the questions we've got. But you've just mentioned a few players there. And if you look at social media, everyone absolutely loves Kieran Tierney. He's certainly a bit of a cult hero. And I think it's not just because of the Tesco bag. It's because he's been brilliant. How good is he now? But how good can he become?
Yeah, well, I love the tucked-in shirt as well, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, we were told back in the day when under George Graham, it's like tuck your shirt in because I quite liked having it out, but they were too baggy to have out back then, of course, in the 90s. But I love that side of him. He's gritty. He's a proper fullback. He's a proper defender. Enjoys defending, and then when he gets forward, we've all seen what a good left foot he's got. Nice drop of the shoulder, can beat a man on the outside. How good can he become? It's hard to tell, but I think he's got the capability to be as good as an Andrew Robertson potentially, but he needs to stay injury free. And one concern was that I read when he joined that he had issues with his pelvis, and that's an injury that I've personal experience with. It's an injury that effectively finished me as a footballer. I had a chronic pelvic injury that was the same, I believe, or a form of. And every time I kicked the ball, it would hurt me in my groin. And it would take a long time after a match to recover to go and play again. The fact that he's playing back-to-back games now, I think is such a relief to me and to many people at the club because there was a nagging doubt in my mind that if he had what I had, this would be big trouble. So I sincerely hope it's not a chronic problem. It's something that rest will continue to help him with.
Okay, and the other person who you say you think that will start, and I think probably will start on the right hand side, is obviously Rob Holding on the right of the three. We talked a lot about him actually in our last event with Smudge because Smudge really likes Rob, and he's had a little bit of an in and out sort of since we've come back to football since March. He's been in and out. He obviously played in that Liverpool game where he just had to defend a lot, but. I mean, where would you say Rob Holding is, and is he one potentially we would look if we were open to offers for him? Would we be? Do you think, or would we be open to offers?
I would persist with Rob Holding. Okay. I think that I think he's shown enough. He just needs to stay injury free, doesn't he, for a while? And I think he's another that's probably better in a three. He's good on the ball. I like him on the ball, although he sometimes takes one or two chances too many. We saw that against Liverpool. But he's a big game player. We've seen that in the past at Wembley when we won the cup before. He was outstanding. I think in the semi-final. I've seen enough of him that I can see that he knows how to defend. Would he be first choice next season? Probably not. Not if we strengthen in that department. But no, I think he's somebody that's worth persisting with. but his development has undoubtedly been hamstrung by injuries. You know, if you do your ACL, that's a problem. For the weekend, I'm a bit nervous. I do think we might have to defend a little bit deeper because Rob isn't quick. We saw with Keenan Davis ran in behind him at Villa. I'm a little bit nervous of Christian Pulisic, I've got to say, who will probably operate on that side. He's rapid. He's a little bit like Eden Hazard was in that Europa League final. So Pulisic against Holding makes me feel a bit edgy, but Rob's got a sensible head on his shoulders and he can do it, I think.
Yeah, and the last time he played a FA Cup final against Chelsea, he didn't do too bad, did he?
Exactly.
And he told Diego Costa, you know what? Neil, I'm going to bring Neil in, and then I'll come to Chloe. So Chloe, get ready for some questions. Neil, welcome. Unmute your mic.
Hi guys, another good meeting. Three quick points I've got. I think the second two are a bit tongue-in-cheek, so bear with me on them. But the first one, I think it's really worthwhile saying how great Martinez has been. He's come in and you can see his handling has been absolutely first class. And I think that's definitely giving some more confidence to whoever plays at the back. So I think that's something that's, and it's going to be very interesting competition now for Leno, because I've been very, very surprised about how good he is. So that's the first point. The second point, so just wondered who Adrian was going to think was going to be the new Jorginho on Saturday to pick up the 8 fouls before he gets booked or then scores the winner. And whether there's going to be somebody that's going to make and the fourth, now Martin Atkinson and Mike Dean aren't going to be reffing. Are either of them going to be in the old VAR box and come up with the old decision to make us lose? Or at least after seeing Mike Dean's face at the weekend, that was fantastic.
So let's go for the first one. So I was going to actually ask you a little bit more about kind of Leno, and obviously he's asked to have put out some videos about him being back. And actually, before he got injured, I mean, in that City game, even though we lost, he produced some terrific saves. But Martinez has come in and finally got his chance and has just been superb, hasn't he? What one mistake, I think, that Firmino one where he nearly closed him down. Apart from that, I don't see anything he's done wrong.
Nothing glaring. No, Emi Martinez is good. Thanks for those, Neil. Yeah, I'm no fan of VAR either. Not the people in charge of it. I like VAR. I just think that we need better people in charge of it. That's for sure. But no, on Martinez, I mean, he couldn't have done any better. I thought he was partially to blame for the Brighton goal, the winner. I think if he stays on his line, I think it's a much harder goal to score. But that's nitpicking. He's been outstanding. Great presence. So dominant, isn't he, in the air? I think stats-wise, he's got the best save ratio of any keeper that's played as many games as he has this season, which tells its own story. So look, he's laid down a marker, and you know what? I think Mikel Arteta has a tough call, because when Bernd Leno's fit at the start of next season, what does he do? I think, in a way, he has to stick with Martinez, because he's done absolutely nothing wrong. And if I was Martinez, I would feel sick if I was dropped on the back of what's happened. At the same time, you don't want to upset your number one keeper. It might be a case of whoever gets the shirt, and I suspect it might be Leno. It will be a case of 2 mistakes and I'm changing it, and it will just be one of those, just to keep everybody on their toes. You make one error, I think you can't put keepers under too much pressure like that. But if there's 2 goals that are down to you, then maybe there'll be a change. But it's a real hard one for the manager. Martinez as well might now see himself as a number one, and if he loses his place, look to move on. So we'll have to wait and see. But boy, has he grabbed his chance! Wow.
That second bit is interesting, because I mean, we seem to have 2 good keepers, young, got a bit of value on them, and potentially in a summer where actually we're not going to have much to spend, we may have to look to move a few on. Obviously, Guendouzi's another. He's
not young, is he, Martinez? You think he's young, but he's in his late 20s now.
Yeah, so. And that's what I mean. This is where they've both got value. So actually, would you be tempted to sell one and reinvest that money somewhere else?
It's a point that might be considered. It depends, doesn't it, how tight funds are and how much wheeling and dealing can be done elsewhere. I wouldn't rule it out. That's for sure, because there will be suitors for both, particularly Martinez, now that he's made such a name for himself. But yeah, look, personally, I would much rather hang on to two excellent goalkeepers than rely on a young player, because if Martinez goes, Leno gets injured again, then you're down to the kids, aren't you? And then you've got a big problem.
Absolutely, and that is so Arsenal, isn't it? Chloe, I'm going to bring you in just to what sort of questions have we had? And I can see that we've had a few. You're on mute. No. You can take your headphones out. Just try that. No. Okay, we'll come back to Chloe when she's sorted out the sound. We love a bit of technical. I'm sure these guys do it to me on purpose, just to test my presenting skills. We'll come back to you, Chloe, a little bit later. No worries. I'm sure they do it to me just to kind of, So we had one from Nicholas Charles. What do you think our tactics against Chelsea will be? We've sort of covered that. But I guess he's kind of talking more about, will we kind of sit back and try and get Chelsea on the break? Kind of like we did. And also he's referring to that home game where we had him for 80 minutes, and Neil's point on Jorginho, he should have been off, and he's popped up and scored the winner. So
yeah. Well, no, good. Yes, it's good to talk about the tactics, obviously. Well, I've looked at all of the Chelsea defeats this season, and the vast majority of teams that have beaten Chelsea this season have had between 30 and 40% of possession. So you can definitely beat them on the counter-attack. No one has beaten Chelsea this season with more than 50-50. The only teams actually that have even had above 40% are Liverpool and Manchester City. So Chelsea will dominate the ball. I think that much is clear. That suits us. And I think the key for us is stretching Chelsea out. Jorginho's not quick. He's a cart horse, isn't he, really? He's a good technical player, but he's not got great legs. So if we can stretch them out on the break, get him chasing us, or our players in those pockets, then I think we're in business. I think tactically it'll be similar to what we saw against Manchester City. Sit quite deep when we have to soak up pressure, and then strike hard and fast. But high up the pitch, and this is what I loved about the City game, is we were brave, we were bold and aggressive. When it was right to pinch the ball high up the pitch, we did it. And this is Wembley, this is a cup final. Players will be nervous, defenders will be nervous. And I think that we can do what we did to City and steal the ball in good areas. But getting it off Chelsea is quite hard. And I also think that City pressed us quite hard, and we played through them really calmly. Chelsea are more come and break us down, and that might mean that we play more longer passes from back to front. So it's how we supply Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Pepe from those deeper areas that might make or break it. But yeah, look, I'm looking for a similar performance. But we're a team, aren't we? Right now, it's all about the transitions. We haven't got a creator, have we? I mean, here's a stat for you: chances created in open play this season, Arsenal. Only 4 teams have created fewer chances in open play. This is Arsenal. We've always been one of the most creative teams in the country, haven't we? City have created more than double the chances we have from open play. So that's a problem, and we definitely need to address it this summer. We need to bring in players that will unlock the door. But for now, it's all about win the ball, be disciplined, give Chelsea no space, especially between the lines. Pulisic, Mount, guys like this, shut them off, and then break hard and fast. And I think that's the way to beat Chelsea. And we have to be mistake free again, obviously, at the back. And David, and for that reason, David Luiz is the key man. He plays as well again. We've got a great chance. Yeah. If he plays like he did against Watford, then it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to us in the away end at Stamford Bridge when we played there last, and David Luiz obviously got sent off then. And
but if you cast your mind back to it, when Xhaka dropped into a back 4, it was that night. Xhaka and Mustafi, wasn't it? I mean, we were all like this, weren't we? I mean, we had we were nervous, and we defended deep, and we slowed Chelsea down, and that's the key. When you slow Chelsea down, then they're not as inventive as you think they are, and I think that will be the key to the strategy. And obviously, when they're looking to bounce balls into Giroud, we've got to be right on his toes. We know how good he is at laying it off for Mount, for Pulisic, guys like that. He did it for us for years. It's all about Xhaka and Ceballos kind of screening him, just as they screened Jesus in the semi.
Yeah. There's a question from Dean. I think we've answered most of it, but he just does talk about the kind of the front three. So just like to talk about that. So I think it's, you know, Nketiah has obviously played a few games where we expect it to be Lacazette, is you know, and obviously Aubameyang, and we think Pepe will play. Do you kind of agree with that? And how would you rate Nico Pepe's first season?
So, yeah. I think for the money, I mean, if we're to sign him for 20 million, you'd be saying, oh, he's been brilliant. But because we signed him for 72, then you're expecting a bit more. I think he's clearly not found consistency in his end product, consistency in his performance. But when all is said and done, he's created more goals than anyone else from open play this season. I think he's created more goals, full stop, in the Premier League for Arsenal than anyone else. So, and he's chipped in with some good goals as well, some really kind of special goals that not that many players are capable of, you know, ducking in on their left foot, bending them into the far corner. No, I think we should certainly persist with him. I would play him. And I just think that he's a potential match winner for us. But yeah, look, if you're grading Pepe's season, it's a 6.5, no better than the 7, is it? But you could probably say that about the majority of this Arsenal team. I think he's. I've seen enough of him to think that next season, when he's acclimatised more, that he can be a real big player for us.
Yeah. You talked about Arsenal not having a creator, and there's about 100 people watching this, and I'm sure one man went through all 100 minds, and there has been a comment about him. He is the elephant in the room most of the time now when we're talking. He's obviously our highest earner, and I'm talking about a certain Mesut Ozil. I mean, just even from your playing days, if you have a really talented player who's just not being picked for whatever reasons, how does that kind of go down in the squad? Because he's quite popular. But also, what do Arsenal do about Mesut Ozil? Because it's if he's not getting in the team when we need a creator, when we're creating less chances than ever, what are the chances ever?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I don't know is the honest answer. I do not know why he's not been involved, whether it's been down to injury, other factors are at play. I genuinely don't know. For me, Mesut Ozil would always be in my matchday squad. He would always be at least on the bench because he's got that capability to unlock the door, and we, as we've covered, that's a shortfall of this team. But Mikel Arteta, if it's down to footballing reasons, I'm surprised because Mesut's attitude prior to the lockdown was good, and he bought into Arteta's way. He was working really hard, and his performances were by and large good. So I am surprised. If it's something else, then Arteta, I think, is a disciplinarian. We've seen with Guendouzi, his treatment of Guendouzi is he's basically sending the message to the rest of the squad. I need to be able to trust you. I need to be able to trust you on and off the pitch, to behave properly, to carry out my instructions, to deliver for the team. I can't afford to have people, mavericks, that will go and do what they want to do when they want to do it. Now, it appears that's the case with Guendouzi. I'm only surmising. I don't know for sure. But all I can think of is that he's lost a little bit of trust in Ozil in that regard. Because for me, he would at least be on the bench if he's fit to play. In this current setup, there is no obvious position for him.
Exactly.
So in that regard, I'm not surprised he's out of the team because there is no position for him in a 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-3. But you sometimes need to flip things around. And if we do flip it to a 4-2-3-1, then Ozil would be in my team.
Yeah. There's a question from Billy that I think is interesting, actually, because Nigel has answered some of it, because there is two parts to this. So Billy said that we all want to win the cup, and obviously, that's a no-brainer. But would it be the worst thing if we weren't in Europe, just to concentrate on kind of pushing for the top 4? So Nigel has answered it on the chat from a financial point of view, because it would be devastating to our football club if we weren't in the if we weren't in the Europa League, believe me. But forget all that. Say money wasn't a factor. Would it kind of help Arsenal? Because obviously people talk about the Chelsea team a few years ago, but of course they were champions the season before, so they still had the squad. But I mean, from a player's point of view and obviously pundit's point of view.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a disaster from a footballing point of view. In fact, quite the opposite. I think it would it would obviously hinder younger players the opportunity to get first team experience. And that's a problem, because I do feel that the experiences that our kids have had in the Europa League have really helped them to blossom. And the Bukayo Saka that we see now, the Willocks, these guys, Martinelli's, they have all benefited massively from those games. So in that sense, it would be a hammer blow for Arteta and the promising kids coming through. If it were to happen, I would also look at it as an opportunity to strike, and by strike I mean really focus on the Premier League for that one season, and to maybe speculate to accumulate. Like you would have to pay potentially over the odds to bring in players, but it would give you that season, that free hit, if you like, to acclimatise them, where we can go from 8th to 4th or 5th potentially, because we've got the freed up fixture list. I think what Chelsea did and other teams have done when they've been out of Europe is actually spend a little bit more, and then bring in raise the talent pool, and then have that immediate bounce back. Because the worry is, if you cut your cloth accordingly financially and go cheap with your transfer strategy, you can end up stagnating at the 8th, 9th, 10th range. What I would like to see, and I don't know if it's possible, but would be an injection potentially from the owners to cover any potential losses of European football to be invested in the squad. That I think would be welcomed. I don't know if it's possible, but from a purely footballing point of view, that's what I would love to see.
Yeah, well, it's possible. There's ways around it. Nigel has spent a bit of time kind of sort of writing things on that, so I'll definitely send you some, Adrian. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Personally, I like the 2 bites of the cherry. I like having the Europa League as a chance to get back into the Champions League. So I just feel it's just too much pressure. So thinking about kind of the squad, and we have talked. It was a good segue into next season. Where, I mean, considering now we're bringing, and I asked you before, forget finances, forget all that, but now let's bring it all back. Let's be realistic. What do you think potentially the squad need? And also I'm thinking starting next season, because obviously there's not going to be very long, September the 12th. Mustafi's out injured, so probably means you can't really sell him. He's got a year left, so you're going to be keeping him. Mari's obviously still coming back. Chambers is still not going to be fit. So what do the squad need realistically, in what positions? But also, centrally, do you think Saliba will come straight in and play, or what's your views?
It's a good question. I haven't seen enough of Saliba to know whether he could come straight into the team. It's not a strong area for us. I think we're all aware of that. So I would imagine he'll be competing. I liked what I saw of Mari. I think that once he's fit again, he would possibly be a first choice, maybe with Saliba, and if it was a 3, potentially with David Luiz, I guess. I would like to see us improve the talent pool in terms of our defensive players, full stop. I think central defence is the key area. I think right back is an area we could look at as secondary. And then you 100% looking at an athletic defensive midfield player, somebody that fits the Arteta way in terms of being good on the ball, but they need to be quick across the ground, because that's the one issue. Xhaka and Ceballos of Ramsey and Vieira, exactly. Dynamism, plenty of dynamism. What we've got with Xhaka and Ceballos at the moment is a good combination. It's working fine, but they don't have legs, and when play breaks down, then we can be in trouble. What they're doing is actually staying pretty deep, because they're playing it safe and leaving the front guys to it, because that's how we have to play. But what I think Mikel would like to do is press higher up the pitch and to be more aggressive. And to do that, he needs a couple of midfield players that are more athletic, younger, really driven, hungry, powerful. I mean, we're talking about someone obviously in the Vieira mould. Thomas Partey is someone I think that ticks a lot of boxes. Don't know if we can afford him or not, or whether he wants to come, but he is the type of player we need for sure. With Ceballos, I think he's improved massively and he's been a key man. But what, and I'm not saying we shouldn't renew the loan, but for me, I would be looking at a Ramsey replacement. We still haven't replaced Aaron Ramsey, in my opinion. We don't have a central midfielder that breaks into the box to score goals on a regular basis. And that makes such a difference, because even if they're not scoring, they're taking a defender with them. They're distracting them, and it makes it easier for Laka, for Oba to get on the end of chances. So for me, a box-to-box midfielder is an absolute must this summer.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Chris, who's raised his hand. So, Chris, would you like to unmute your phone or computer or device, and feel free to ask your question? I think you're still on mute. Chris? Nope. Maybe you've answered it.
We'll have to get some written questions.
We'll keep going. There was one from Dean as well, which I was going to cover as well. And I think you've mentioned it, and we mentioned it off air. But Dean's asked about kind of the youngsters. Because obviously we've got a good crop of young players coming through. Dean personally has been a bit disappointed that Joe Willock and Reece Nelson haven't pushed on as much as they should have, like a Saka or a Martinelli. But generally, I mean, how would you rate that crop of youngsters? There's Nketiah there as well, of course. I mean, it's very rare that all of them will make it and have big careers at Arsenal, but never say never.
I think this is the best crop of young players I've seen for a long while. Certainly since I've been working for the club as a journalist and a broadcaster. I think that the quality is really huge. I think it's a bit harsh to say Nelson and Joe Willock haven't kicked on. For me, Joe Willock's exceeded expectations already. I think he's improved massively. And in flashes, he's made some outstanding contributions. The goal at Liverpool, the assist at Wolves was excellent. Yeah. But what he hasn't been able to do is dominate games in that position. He's been a bit quiet in that attacking midfield role. So I think he needs to be more confident and more demanding. Reece Nelson, I think, has got all the talent in the world, and is now much more comfortable in the first team. The problem he's got is that the guy in front of him costs £72 million, and that will limit your opportunities. Smith Rowe, I think, is good and can come back in and challenge, because he's a creative type. Eddie Nketiah, I love his hold-up play. I think he's a quality centre forward, but he probably needs to score more goals to stay at Arsenal long term. But he's still got the chance to do that. I think he'll get further opportunities. The two standouts, in my opinion, are Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli. Martinelli, I just think he's fearless. I love his attitude, his pace. His finishing is brilliant. I mean, his conversion rate, I think, is 30%, which is about right up there with the best sort of marksman in the division. He just needs to get more chances, and obviously he was playing on the left. I think ultimately he can be a centre forward, especially if Arteta wants to go with this false nine, where we've seen Lacazette drop in and hound defenders and be selfless. I can see Martinelli fulfilling that role and bursting into the box to get on the end of things. I think actually that would suit him down to the ground. And Bukayo Saka, I think, is quality. I just love his temperament, his final ball, because it's easy. Like sometimes when it's not that hard to get into good positions. You know, you've got good players around you that will feed you, and it's all about, can you deliver in the pressure moments when all eyes are on you, to pull out the best final pass, to pull out the cross, the shot. He delivers so much more consistently than a lot of senior players. So Saka and Martinelli are just fantastic in my view.
Yeah, probably got about 5 more minutes. So if anybody does want to quickly put their hand up for probably the final question, then obviously do let me know. I mean, on that, you mentioned Lacazette there. Obviously, he's had a bit of an up and down season. There was talks about him potentially moving on. But then it's also linked with obviously Aubameyang. He's now got, we're past the 30th of June, so he's got less than a year left now. So what would you be tempted to maybe sell one of them? And obviously you probably would choose Lacazette and then reinvest it, or would you just want to keep them?
I think that one of the big three, Aubameyang, Lacazette or Ozil, is likely to be sold in order to reinvest in the squad.
I think Ozil definitely would. I just don't think anybody will take him on his wages.
Yeah, look, I've been a fan of Mesut Ozil. I still think he can contribute, but it comes to the point where you probably need to look to the future. And if Arsenal can find a way to move on from him, to bring in a younger version on less money, I think that would make sense on a lot of levels. I'd be loath to lose Lacazette because I think he's got great spirit and character, and I think that he's a good person to have around the place, and he's also a good finisher. He's a decent striker, more than decent striker, and it would cost probably more than we could afford to actually replace him unless we pulled a gem out of the fire or gave Martinelli or Nketiah that chance long term. So look, I always look at it from a footballing angle. I don't want to lose Lacazette.
Yeah.
I think the most expendable is Ozil because he's not in the team.
Yeah, and how good is Aubameyang, and how desperate are we to get him to sign a new contract? Well,
he's fantastic. I mean, he's just a goal muncher, isn't he? I mean, he loves it. I mean, he's lethal, and I think he's perfected the art of being that left-sided forward now. I almost feel he would find it alien to be down the middle on his own. I think it makes it harder for teams to contain him. And the runs he makes are quality. And I've liked his attitude. I think since he took the armband, actually, he's raised his game. He's worked really hard for the team. So no, I think he's brilliant. But look, if we lose him, it will be down to the fact that we're not in Europe and we're not in the Champions League. I think that he's very happy here. But you only get one career, don't you? And if he feels that it feels wrong to miss out on Champions League, in the swan song of his career, then we might have to cut him loose, and boy, would that put pressure on the recruiters to get the right people in. Yeah. But look, it would give Martinelli for sure that opportunity to stamp his mark. But look, I don't think any Arsenal fan wants that to happen. But I genuinely feel that the decision will solely come down to Aubameyang and what he wants to do with his career.
Fingers crossed. Quickly, Graham, you've got 30 seconds if you want to unmute yourself and quickly ask your question. You've only got about 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, Adrian. Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
Quick one for you. Do you think that the clubs are going to have to really work hard to get fans back into the stadiums? I mean, I was worried about it. I take my 2 sons. We sit in the junior gunner section. One boy's 8, the other's just about to turn 13. And it got me thinking to myself, am I going to take them? And clubs are going to really have to convince, I don't just think it's exclusive to Arsenal, by the way, but clubs are going to really have to work hard to get fans back in the stadiums, I think. Is football, I just want your opinion, is football finished as we know it?
Well, I certainly hope not, Graham. Yeah, I mean, look, the medical people probably have a better idea than me. If we can find this mystery vaccine, and that's one way out of this horrible nightmare, isn't it? But as it stands, I think next season is going to be limited crowds. I think a lot of people will say, no, it's not for me. I don't think Arsenal will have problem filling however many seats they have. I just think, it's a personal choice. But yeah, I think we have to, unfortunately, Graham, get used to a very different type of football for next season, and just pray that the powers that be in the medical profession can sort out a cure or a treatment for this horrible disease, and that we can get back to normal business. Because look, football without a full stadium, the Emirates without 60,000 in there, it's not the same. But for now, we have to enjoy what we've got and get behind the team, don't we, from afar? I think that's all that we can do.
Paul, quickly, I'm going to let you in. You've got 10-15 seconds.
Hi, thank you very much. Adrian,
hello, Paul.
What do you make of Zach Medley? Desperate for an Arsenal academy boy coming through. Is he not going to be good enough to be a central defender?
It's a good question. I think he might be thinking, you get to that stage, don't you, of your development, and you think, well, am I ever going to get a chance? Obviously, with so many injuries, you would have thought he would have been closer than he is. I've not seen enough to really judge him. I think that the bits I've seen that I like, but there are other areas of concern. So I'm not wholly surprised based on what I've seen that he's not in the first team. It happened to me. Like, I had a few games in the first team. I did pretty well. I've held my own. I had 1 or 2 good games, some average. But ultimately, Arsene Wenger decided that at my age, I think I was 21 at the time, he couldn't guarantee that I would always be in the squad. And he said, at that age, you need to be playing first team football. I think it's best for you and for us to part ways. I suspect that might happen to Zech Medley and a few others around his age group that aren't regulars.
Would you put Ainsley Maitland-Niles in that? And there was a question about him as well.
Well, Ainsley's had a lot of games. Ainsley's had a lot of games, a lot of chances. Paul, and I think, look, Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a talent, but I'm not quite as excited about him as some people are. I still think in that semi-final, as well as he did, most of the chances came via 1-2s that bypassed him in that position down that side, especially in the second half. I don't think he's good enough to be our central midfielder based on what I've seen. So in Ainsley's shoes, myself, it wouldn't surprise me if he was looking to move on to become a fixture somewhere else. But look, right now, Arteta likes him. So there's a quandary there, because if the manager likes you, you stay, and you're at Arsenal, you stay. No one wants to leave Arsenal, let me tell you. Or very few people want to leave Arsenal. I'm sure Ainsley doesn't. But hand on heart, I think his long-term future might not be here.
Okay. Putting you on the spot here from John. If Aubameyang leaves, he's wrote the name of who he wants as captain. But I'm going to have it as more of an open-ended question. So just give me a name. Who's captain?
Oh, that's a really.
I'll tell you who he said after.
There's not a huge standout, is there? Let's be honest. Initially, I would have said Lacazette, actually, who didn't come near to it. I think if Xhaka's still here, I'd give it back to him because I think he's a leader. John thought Bellerin. Yeah, I just think Hector's a great person and a great guy in the dressing room, and I think people love him, but I don't know whether he's the first name on the team sheet. That's the issue. And for me, actually, Xhaka is a player that has natural leadership. And I think now that what happened has blown over, whether we can ever go back there, I don't know. But he is the most natural captain outside of Aubameyang, in my honest opinion. But look, I wouldn't be against us signing somebody. Who came in and took the armband if they were a natural leader.
That works. Cool. And absolute last question. This is: do you think the club have ever watched your breakdowns and your kind of analysis? And someone did mention like Arsene Wenger or any of the other previous managers. Or
no one's pulled me up on it.
No one's given you a job. Maybe
look. I love analysing football, and look, if the football department ever asked me to get involved, I would definitely be interested because I love it, and I think it's something I'm decent at. I don't know, but Arsene Wenger, I don't really mix with the players or the management. I don't very rarely see them, and no one has ever really acknowledged it, but Pat Rice I've bumped into at games, and I know that he's watched it and said nice things, and other people, other former players watch it and have been positive. But I don't know. Maybe they should. I don't know.
Well,
sometimes it's awkward. I think it's very separate. What I do, the analysis that I do, is to hopefully tell you, the supporters, the story of the game from a tactical point of view, and to point out things that might have been missed. I missed things the first time around. We all do. That's the idea of it. It's for the supporters. What goes on behind the scenes in analysis is a bit more technical, and they'll be looking at analysing games in a slightly different way, I'd imagine. But look, I'm available if ever they need me. So we'll see.
Well, Adrian, we hope you keep doing what you're doing. Keep analysing games for Arsenal. I think, as I said, we did get tweets and stuff of people telling us that they do enjoy your show. wanted us to pass that on. And
Thank you.
obviously it's you know, you're an Arsenal man on an Arsenal channel sort of thing. So I think most people would rather watch you analyse a game than maybe someone who maybe has got a vested interest, let's just say. So Adrian, thank you. Enjoy the cup final. I guess you'll be on all the Arsenal channels before the cup final and after.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, the breakdown live, I think we kick off at 5. So there'll be a 25 minute or so build up to the game. Yeah, we'll go through it in depth, and then there'll be radio commentary if you want it. Half-time analysis, full-time analysis as well. So yeah, it should be good. Hopefully it'll be a happy ending, and well, like the other 2 cup finals against Chelsea, FA Cup finals. Of course.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right. Well, thank you, Adrian. Thank you for everyone watching. Enjoy the cup final. I guess that's the most important thing. I think, you know, we're all football fans. We all want to be in the game to win trophies. So let's hopefully we'll win. And the AST will be back. We'll probably have another virtual event at some point between now and the end of the season. So thank you for joining. Stay safe and up the Arsenal. Thank you. Adrian, if I just get you to just shut your camera for a second.
Okay, yeah.
Just automatically shuts. Just stay with us for a minute or so.
Yeah, no worries.